Okay.
So first things first. So your name is what? Deon,
Yep.
and you're from New Zealand.
Yeah, I am now originally from South Africa.
Okay, that's cool. So how long have you been into typology?
I don't think you would use the word into. How long have I known about it? How long have I been doing tests? How long have I sort of vaguely
Like,
joined a few Facebook groups? A couple of years, but I'm not into it in as much that I really understand how to type people, obviously.
I guess what I'm wondering is like detail your original encounter with it.
Well, that goes quite way back. I was interested in personality tests before MBTI was sort of really a thing. So that was the Hippocratic system where I typed myself as melancholic, quite obviously, no doubt. There was the DIST system at one for a while, just to get an idea of how that worked. And then when MBTI sort of became a bit more common on Facebook, I decided to just test. But it wasn't something that was making a difference. I suppose because there weren't really chat groups and there wasn't a community to get to know like-minded people. But now, the more that has happened in the past few years, the more it becomes relevant to sort of know what your type was and how you related to other types and so on.
Okay. So have you done a lot of research into it at all, or did you just kind of hang around the community?
I read quite a bit up on INTP because that's what the tests were saying I was. So I was sort of establishing to what degree that was true or false.
Um, I basically ask everyone this because it's usually pretty illuminating. What were you like as a child? Say like 5 or 6 years old.
Very shy, very quiet. I could keep myself busy with things, various toys and puzzles and what have you. Yeah, puzzles was quite a big thing. Um, I was the oldest, so I was sort of a little bit more responsible. I listened to my parents. I did what I was told.
Mm-hmm.
And I sort of investigated things without adult prompting or adult.
Okay. What about say like 10 to 12? Anything different?
Well, by 10 to 12, I had started my hobbies once again. I'd sort of, I don't even know how, I just saw model aircraft in the shops, decided that was obviously my thing, got into it, and had been doing it by the age of 12 for 6 years. Once again, no one in my family really available to help me, so it was just all a self progression. I was still shy, but I had quite a number of friends. You always one-on-one type of friendships. Um, I cycled around a lot. I read books a lot. I remember I read encyclopedias a fair bit at that stage because that was the only way to find out more on anything. Um, I was not popular. I was clever in the sense that I was able to do my schoolwork without learning a ridiculous amount. I did not like learning.
Mm-hmm.
Maths always stood out. I was like pretty good at maths.
Okay. And were you good in maths? Because I remember being in math class and my teacher would be like, "Okay, this class we're gonna learn about how to do this." Right? And he would do a few examples, and then I'd be like, oh, okay, I get the concept, and then I would just do the homework that he passed out before class was over because I already knew, okay, this is how this formula works. I can plug in any numbers, and it works the same way.
I was very similar in the respect that, now obviously that changed towards high school time, but in primary school, I was doing what I was told because I was told to do so, but I was trying to understand it before doing it. So if I didn't understand it, I was tending to lag behind because I wasn't interested in just getting numbers right on a maths problem. I needed to understand why it was like that. But once I understood that, yeah, no problem.
Okay.
And I remember one instance where we were asked to analyze a geometry shape, which happened to be the yin-yang symbol. And the class was asked how you actually draw that. And so just within a few minutes, I could look at it and determine you use this radius here, that radius there, and so on and so on, way before the other kids. So yeah, if I understood something, it came very quick.
Okay. I will say that knowing like what you're into and what you're going to do from a young age where it never changes, that's something that I often associate with introverted intuition users, especially like I've seen it in a few INTJs. Like one of them, he always knew that he just loved music, and then that's all he ever did in his life was make music. And he learned all kinds of different instruments and recording software and how all the equipment works, everything around music.
That was true of me from before the age of 5, probably. My grandparents had told me that as a little baby, I'd looked up into the sky and looked at aeroplanes. And I was just utterly amazed with these things that were flying in the air. This was without prompting, because no one in my family was into aircraft or anything. And that continued through primary school. I was just totally into it, and I knew I wanted to fly aircraft. So in high school, I just always knew I needed to apply to the Air Force, apply to get into the Air Force for pilot training, which I did. So yes, from very young up to the point at which I was doing flying training, there was just a clear path. That all changed when I failed the flying somewhere in after about 250 hours. And then I had to readdress this whole thing of what to do with my life. So yeah.
Was that a struggle for you or just a process?
I would say it was a struggle because it wasn't a case of letting go of aircraft. Aircraft remained and remains to this day that same focus point in my life. So it was more a case of trying to find, well, what do you do that you might enjoy now? And it happened to head to programming, which was interesting, but I mean, you just can't compare programming to flying aircraft. They're on different levels.
Well, how does flying aircraft feel that makes it so much better?
Good question. How to explain that to someone? I don't even know how to explain that to you. It's I suppose the biggest thing is programming is just it's static in the sense of you're sitting in front of a screen all day. You're not involved in life. Flying is a massive involvement in. I like freedom. I'm now free in the air.
That sounds like the kind of a draw of extroverted sensing. It's where you need like that visceral connection to things to feel satisfied.
It's the same as being interested in motorbikes, which I also am.
Right.
And the difference between riding motorbikes. So once you have the wind in your face, you're going at speed and you're free to choose your route and just go to unknown places. Yeah, it's sort of in a way that kind of feeling. So there's the interest in the technical aspect, the artistic aspect of aircraft, but flying them was a whole different thing.
Cool. So what were you like in high school, like say socially?
Very good with my one-on-one, my select few one-on-one friendships. These were almost always 1 or 2 in a year. So I would make one good friend, and that would be my friend for the year. We always hung out, like I said, maybe two. So as long as that friendship remained good, that's what would be my social life. If there was a bit of an upset, well, then you just readjusted. But I was seldom in a group, hardly ever invited to group activities, didn't even really like group activities. Definitely an introvert, yeah.
What did you do with your friends? Like, why were they your friends?
Again?
Huh?
It just cut out the video a little bit. What did you say there?
I said, why, for what purpose did you make friends? Like, what did you do with them?
Deep chatting, I guess, chatting about all sorts of topics. Different from superficial relationships. You'll chat to a few people and then you'll realize a particular person the aspect, I guess, or in a sense connected on a particular level. It might have been a particular style of chatting. So it didn't always have to be that we have the same topics. I mean, most of my friends were not into aircraft, so I couldn't wait for a friendship to be only because of the topic. It was more on the style of relating.
Okay, and can you detail that at all?
Well, I suppose like the one chap when I was sent off to boarding school. That was at the age of 16, and the first chap that I made friends with, he'd joined at the same time. He had been through a little bit of struggle in his life. He had some aspects of problems, so we sort of related to each other in that way. So we were starting something in the same school, being through a little bit of similar background. Yeah, I suppose that's all I can think of to tell you in that way. There was another chap that I related to more on the sense that he was intelligent. We did almost equally in maths. We became way watched.
So you would talk about shared experiences. Was that the kind of interaction you were looking for?
Well, that was high school. That was, right. I mean, I had a sort of I don't know if you'd call it, it's not a limited set that you've got to choose from, but compare that to post-school and post-university, where I now had my set of established friendships, or some were still going to be established at that point. But those then became more or less friends for life. Why? It's sort of like they became like brothers, you know. Even if you had an argument or a fight, you were still going to be friends with each other. There were common interests. They were chatting about all sorts of things, philosophizing about life, talking about motorbikes, talking about plans for life, talking about girls, whatever, you name it. We just had that understanding and connection.
Okay. So you went to school for what? For college, I mean.
First for engineering and then for computer science.
Okay. And what do you do now?
Software testing.
Okay. So software testing for aircraft.
No, for accounting in this case.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Not particularly by choice, just had to accept a job that pays the bills.
Oh, understandable.
If I had my choice, I'd probably be working in a factory building aircraft.
So what do you like to do for fun?
All of this that you see around me, I don't know how clearly you can see all of those.
Well, I know you build model planes.
that's. I also do war games. Or I did war games when I had before I immigrated. I've had one opponent here. Radio control. '3D art.
So wait, so you just broke up a lot, but war games like on the computer?
No, tabletop war games.
Oh,
so playing with the actual pieces.
I gotcha. Like games like Risk.
I have played that, but that's very, very simple.
Okay.
That's a bit too simple.
I gotcha. So you like things that are complicated.
Yeah.
Okay. You said radio control.
Yes, and I said programming for fun as well, but and 3D printing.
So do you just like printing different stuff in 3D for fun?
The idea was to support the modeling hobby so that when I need parts that are difficult to manufacture, I could do that. But as what random. Like, for instance, this one.
So, how often do you have a motorcycle?
Since I immigrated, I don't ride motorcycle anymore. I do have one. It's in a state of slight disassembly in the garage.
Okay.
I was rebuilding it. But before I immigrated, I rode motorbike every day. That was my transport.
Okay. Why did you stop rebuilding it?
This particular one, because I distribute my attention between way too many projects.
Well, what other projects do you have?
Oh, any number of models, aircraft, a few model ships on the go. Yeah, I was teaching myself to do fiberglassing once again in support of the model building. So I was just bringing in more and more things to support the hobby.
Yeah, I'm definitely seeing clear SE and NI in your stack, mainly introverted intuition, because you actually have this clear focus, and everything seems to kind of amass around it in support of kind of this singular goal and interest that you have.
Yeah, that is very clear. Yep.
And like a lot of your hobbies and activities seem to, you have no problem just be like, oh, I'm gonna learn how to do this now because that way I can keep doing what I want to do.
Yes, yeah.
So you have no problem like motivating yourself, at the spur of the moment, right? If you already have a goal or a plan in mind, like you'll get it done. If you're right.
Yes.
You'll always have the parts that you need. You'll always have everything that you need, right, to accomplish what's important to you.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing I see, especially in people with third slot NI. They have ISTPs in particular. I don't know why I see this over ISFPs, but they just have this. They figure out what they want to do, and then they just do it, and nothing stops them.
Yeah.
And that's not an experience that I'm familiar with.
I mean, it's not always the easiest. Some things are a bit of a struggle. My first attempts at fiberglassing were absolute disaster. And first attempts at things are often a disaster, but I've just learned that you can't let that stop you. If you want to achieve something and you can achieve it because you've seen other people achieve it, then there's no reason to hold back.
I like that attitude. So would you say it's very common for you to mess things up the first time?
You see, the problem is that you might be misled by the answer because I start so many things. So within any particular year, I've started any number of models, and you could say, well, how many of them, or how many times starting things like, well, my first 3D prints happened to work out pretty well. Once I understood what I was doing with the fiberglassing, that turned out well. No, I wouldn't say I mess it up. I would say it's a progression of skill. The first time I did oil painting, that's another thing I didn't mention. It wasn't the greatest painting, but I developed up to the point where they're really nice.
Okay. Because like for me, for example, I've learned to just take it as fact that like the first not once, but the first several times like I try to do anything, I'll just mess it up. And I basically I have to like it's almost like I have to go through and make every single possible basic error, maybe even multiple times before I get to a point where I'm like it's now automated and I can just churn out an acceptable result without even having to think about it or focus on it.
Yeah, I think maybe the difference, because I maybe had an aspect of that long ago, but I had to quickly force that under control. To make headway with things, you've got to let go of the idea that you will reach a perfection procedure. And you have to accept that it's okay to do it this time, and it's okay to do it the next time slightly better, and it's okay to do it the third time and completely destroy it because you were trying something new, and it's okay to do it the fourth time and suddenly have quite a good sort of result. So that's sort of my process. I hope for a good result, but I don't require it for my procedures to work. It's a manufacturing process, and every manufacturing process in the world has a prototype stage.
Fair enough. I mean, I've learned to accept that I'm going to screw stuff up a bunch of times, and it doesn't bother me. It's just I've noticed with I guess people with high extroverted sensing that they're the most likely types to just be able to feel something out and get it right more or less the first time without having to like watch somebody else do it or having to try it themselves a few times. I don't know what it is about that, but I don't know if you relate to that at all.
Yeah, I mean that may be true. The first models I built was when I was 6, so obviously I was going to mess things up a bit there, but I will often try something that turns out okay, but it's not because I had some magical skill that made it okay. It's just because as I started, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking, okay, well, I need to do this to get this to work. Let me think of the ways. If I do this, that'll leave a bit of that. This will do a bit of that, but it'll leave that. This might be the best. Okay, let's try that one. Do it. Okay. So I'm pondering all the ways that it could work. I mean, I'm doing one right now that I did exactly that, and it hasn't been the best. And I don't mind that. I don't mind problems that challenged you quite greatly and still yet any of the ways that you thought of. So, yeah.
I mean, that's a pretty clear description of like the introverted thinking / extroverted perceiving combination, right? Okay, well, let me think about all the options and then, suss out which is the most likely the best option.
Yeah.
But it always has to start with, okay, what am I thinking about? What am I trying to do? You're not. It's like it funnels the extroverted sensing or the extroverted intuition down into basically a singular goal.
Yeah.
Whereas someone who's like an ENTP, like when I was hanging out with Eric, they're just like all over the place. They can't really focus on one thing for very long. It's kind of unrestrained perception where it's like they're not trying to figure out the best way to do something. They're trying to figure out the best thing to do, and they're just going to keep going until they happen to stumble into it. And that's the extroversion there, basically, is being so focused on that space outside of you that you can't come to your own conclusions about things.
Yeah. I don't like it when the analysis process starts going in a circle. So I like it when you've tried to grab all the options, you've been fairly reasonable with what you've been thinking about, and then you just need to go ahead and do one. So there's this balance of perfection being that you really did reach the perfect conclusion versus you chose a good one out of the results and went ahead with it anyway, because if it messed up, you could do it again even better. So I need to get to the doing phase at some point.
Did you used to struggle with getting to the doing phase?
No, hardly ever.
Okay. Yeah, that's something I've had to learn. Like, I'm 27 years old and I still it's so hard to do that. I don't know if you even can understand. It's like to just think about things, and even way past the point where you've thought to a conclusion, you're still not doing it because then you're going back and rethinking it again for no real good reason.
Yeah, you see, if I was in that position, I would have think about them, that's fine, great. Now set yourself the goal to just do one of them. Do one aspect of something that you were thinking about and test a result. It's a bit sort of experimental. To support your analysis in your head, you need to actually achieve an experimental result. And if you made a mistake, that's fine. A bit more thinking and try again.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out basically if you really are an ISTP. It seems like you are. If you haven't had, it seems like you've spent much of your life being active, going after something, right? At any given point, really, and not letting anything slow you down. Which is a single-mindedness that I see a lot more, I guess, out of an ISTP than I would out of most INTPs.
Yeah. I think that I've been called that quite a lot.
What?
One-track-minded, single-minded. And when I get into something, under ideal circumstances, I'm actually allowed to dig so deep into that thing to the exclusion of many aspects in my life. And if I can't do that, that sort of frustrates me, because you've got this high mental energy that to achieve a deep dig on something, but you're being restricted from it due to not enough time or interruptions or that sort of thing.
Well, right, and it's interesting to, I guess, for people to see how, because I guess ISTPs are often thought of as people who are like very active, maybe even people who are like players or whatever. Like Eric says that they're really good at slaying the puss, basically. You know, getting laid all the time, I mean, stuff like riding motorcycles would be like a stereotypical ISTP hobby. But at the same time, one can look at you and be like, well, he doesn't really spend all of his time out there being physically active or engaged in like the stereotypical SE sense. And you can see how you're still leading with that introverted thinking TI engine. And that was obvious from the first moment you spoke, you know, in this recording, just the way that you speak and articulate things. But like all of your hobbies are still very hands-on, even though you're basically doing it alone in your room, which is a lot of people forget about that. But your TI is still clearly being filtered down into extroverted sensing, but it's still largely an intellectual process, other than the little pieces and parts involved. But I do think that you really should get back on your motorbike, because it would probably make you feel a lot better.
Yeah, the one of the reasons that I'm not, well, two of the reasons that I'm not riding as I did before I emigrated is we commonly go out as a family. And the second reason is that the annual costs to ride a motorcycle here are much, much higher than in South Africa. So in South Africa, riding a motorbike achieved quite a number of goals, being an exceptionally practical transport, maneuverable, get in and out of traffic, nippy, very, very cheap. The opposite is true here. It's more expensive than a car. The road network and the speed restrictions, so it sort of breaks every goal that I achieved in South Africa. It's not the cheapest, it's not the nippiest. You just can't do what I used to do on a motorbike.
Oh, that's a shame, huh?
But I do have it, and yes, when I'm finished it, I will ride it around a little bit. Probably teach my son.
Yeah. You may have to find an alternative then. Because if you really are an ISTP, then there's got to be something about kind of sitting at a desk.
The most parasailing. I did a bit of hang gliding in the past. I like that. Once again, air, wind in your face, freedom. So we'll see when the opportunity arises for a bit more parasailing or hang gliding.
Sweet. Yeah, I mean, I think ISTP makes a lot of sense for you. Like, is there anything that doesn't seem to fit?
Well, I hadn't had enough time to investigate ISTPs as much as I had learned about INTP. So while I was under the impression that I was INTP, there was always this obvious and clear focus on the logic side of things. Absolutely logical, very analytical. So what I didn't realize is that ISTP can also have all of that. The question, I suppose, was whether an INTP would be as into crafts from an early age, and more so, this was one of the key things from my own analysis, is if I was only allowed to do one thing for a month, you lock me in a room and you give me one thing to do, would I rather do a model, so a crafting activity, hands-on, or would I rather sit and analyze or read a book or something like that? And it will have to be the crafting thing. If I was only going to be restricted to thinking and reading, that wouldn't be enough.
Why wouldn't it be enough?
Because I have to have a physical outlet to a mental experience. So having analyzed and thought of something, I need to create it, do it, test it, etc.
Okay. So your analysis really does just have to be concretized.
Yeah.
It can't all be conceptual.
Yeah.
And I guess I can see the kinds of things that you are analyzing are things that can be constructed with your hands.
Yeah. I mean, at stages, I've had philosophical chats with one of my friends about life and so on. But once you've sort of been around the block with those sort of philosophy discussions, it's like, I've had enough, you know, we don't need to discuss it again. I'd rather discuss something which can then be verified or exercised in some way. So you won't easily grab me into a philosophy discussion unless there's a point to it.
Well, right. There has to be an actual goal.
Yeah.
Which is really an NI thing. Like, it's the NE and the SI people can seem to just be able to bullshit and talk in circles for like hours and hours and hours. And that's what I'll do with my online friends. We'll rehash the same discussions. We'll talk about the same thing way past the point where it's been beaten to death. You know. And everyone will have their own angle on it, you know.
If I was in one of those discussions, I would be out
rolling your eyes
soon, and I'll just tell you, I'd be telling you to get a grip, make a decision, and move on.
Yeah.
Or more accurately, I'd tell you that you did already make an ISTP. Okay, connection. Okay, is the connection back there?
Yeah, we're back. We're good. But yeah, I mean, it's funny how like as an INTP, my TI is basically always directed toward things that are entirely abstract and entirely conceptual, and will never make my life any better, or will ever make me any money, or result in any actual thing materializing in the world. I mean, it may result in something materializing like 50 years down the road, just because of the butterfly effect, you know, but
yeah.
Other than that, I mean, a lot of it won't make a single damn difference in my life. Nonetheless, right, the kind of things that I'm analyzing are all just psychology, philosophy, politics, just complete ethereal bullshit. And to me, I don't care how a car works. I don't, like, everyone else can figure all that stuff out, right? I'll think about the stuff that nobody else has the energy or the inclination to even bother thinking about for years and years and years on end, you know?
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. But I have to say, working as a contractor has really kind of forced me to get a lot better at the kinds of thinking and activity that I would not ever normally engage in.
I was always a bit irritated. This was while I was under the MP, but I think it applies to a great many INTPs, and I'm not sure. It applies to me as an ISTP, but I don't think it applies to all ISTPs, and that is that the supposed intelligent types, INTP, with all that thinking power, are not applying the thinking power to actually achieving a financial or physical gain in their life. You have the ability to think better than many people, let's say in your primary school class, in your high school class, but they all succeeded way above you and earn much more money than you. Well, not all of them, but I mean, you get the point. It's out of proportion.
Oh, yeah.
Your thinking level is being misdirected, possibly because of an unwillingness to face some of the more mundane aspects of life, like getting involved in property, how taxes work. Stop with the sort of easy to do activities like gaming, and get involved in a bit of stuff that makes a difference in your life.
You're absolutely right about that. We have like, there's that thing going on where we have like apparently the highest average IQ, but then the lowest average income.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, I do the same. My model building doesn't make me a single penny, and it doesn't progress my career life in any way. I love doing it and I won't stop doing it. You could say the same for gamers, I suppose. They love doing their games. You could say the same for many hobbies, but not willing to put your mental power at the age of 16, 18, 20, 21, 22 into making more significant steps in your life.
Right. Well, and I would say even the simple fact that you're actually making something like that actually exists as like a time object, you know, it does satisfy a certain biological drive that we have as humans, that like playing a video game, right, doesn't produce anything. And there's something about actually producing things that's important for people.
Yes, I do like the achievement of it.
Yeah, there is a lot of important stuff in life that seems pretty mundane, at least to me. It's hard to get out of that mindset where it's like, oh man, I've already seen something like this before. I've been there, done that. Like, when is something actually exciting gonna happen? But like in real life, exciting things never happen, you know.
Because I sort of get the impression that all an INTP needed was a risk taker and a non-thinker to assist them in just saying, right, you've thought up the solution, let's put it in action and do something that makes money. When I was shortly out of high school, I got involved in a bit of buying and selling of motorbike parts. And I wouldn't say I made money, but I made profit. So the important thing was that I was achieving the goal of getting a motorbike or parts that I needed without actually losing money. And that buying and sell was suggested to me at the time as being a great business, but I didn't take it anywhere.
Yeah.
Now, that's not an intelligent business, and I don't know if that's the key, that an INTP is looking for. It's like cheating if you didn't make money by doing a very impressive mental task. Well, life doesn't just work like that. Life works that you just needed to have a good idea, not the best and perfect idea. So all your classmates supersede you by doing things that you would look on and say, well, I could have done that.
Right.
Yeah, I could have done that one easily. But you didn't.
No, like I've even read a description of the INTP that I saw somewhere, which is really rather good. And it explicitly mentions that there's a whole host of things that we often know that we could do if we wanted to do them. But we never actually bother ourselves to do it. And you're also right about the fact that we're probably highly dependent on other people helping us kind of make the most value out of ourselves, because when we're left to our own devices, we don't really care about anything, or we'll skip right over something that could have made a difference in our life or whatever.
There was one time in my life when one of my friends was busy studying a course at university, which I had done the previous year or a year or two earlier. So he wasn't an INTP. I don't know exactly what he is. He got his assignment. I asked if I could see it just out of interest. I observed that it was a pretty easy one, yet he seemed to be a little bit mentally perturbed by this assignment. So I said, hey, yeah, have you got the book here? Let me just check quickly. Had a look at his question, opened the book, whipped over to the section. I said, there you go, there's the answer to that one, that'll help you going. There's the answer to that one, that'll help you going quite well. Gave it back to him, and he never did that. And it sort of confused me. He didn't want to be able to answer the question in that way. He wanted book in its
Baby, lost internet. Well, I think the phone just moved. Yeah, there we go. Okay, sorry about that.
right. You're back. Okay.
So he,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what you missed there.
you said your friend, he didn't want to be able to answer it that way.
Yeah. So that was sort of a bit perplexing to me as to why you would mess up an assignment, because it's, I mean, it's such a stress relief to be able to get your questions done and hand in an assignment rather than have this mental method that you want to achieve reading and surrounding this problem with so much stuff, going round and round the problem rather than just going straight to the heart of the problem. So that's I suppose something I like to do. I will think of many solutions. Of course, I'll analyze a problem. I will go around it, but I'll go straight to the heart of it as well.
Well, TI goes straight to the heart of things in general.
Yeah.
Like, even when I'm conceptualizing something, I will usually start with, okay, what's the gist of what I'm dealing with here? And then after that, I'll start filling in everything. But,
yeah,
you know, I'll walk into a situation and it'll be like, okay, what are you trying to do? What are you doing? How do you do it?
Yeah.
Just figure it out. But I guess for some of the reasons we've discussed, I think ISTP is probably like the most impressive type there is, because they're an introverted thinking Dom, meaning, you know, they have that tool by which you can, you know, determine basically the optimum thing to do. You know, figure out literally what is the best version of this, right? And then you actually have the drive and the inclination to, you know, actually do things. And so whatever you end up choosing to do, you really can become a master at whatever that is, because of the degree to which you analyze it and the fact that you will just keep doing it and refining it.
Yeah. Like one of the projects that I'm busy on at the moment is a really, really cool challenge to me. And that's one of the aircraft that I want to build a large model of. So I'll just show you this. So for instance, this is the fin, the rudder. Now just to give you a little bit of a history of where to get to this point. So I've analyzed what models are available, because obviously you don't want to reinvent the wheel. And looking at all of the models available, you realize that they're all not quite up to standard. They've all got faults. And that's easy to understand, because a lot of people just manufacture things with the best that they can do at the time. The next step was reverting to large sheet line drawings. And then you realize that these large sheet line drawings are inaccurate on many of them. So what's left? There's only one thing that's left, and that you have to go to the original manufacturer's blueprints. And that's what I just showed you. This here is a blueprint made by North American Aviation. So you then get a CD with 10,000 microfiche blueprints on it, but you eventually get to exactly a perfect part drawing that you need. Then the next step is to start figuring out the manufacturing process for a model. and you collect the bits, like for instance that. Now if you look at the edge of that tape, can you see it's got that pinked effect? They call it pinked.
Mm-hmm.
So in the wartime, they cover metal surfaces with canvas, and that tape goes on. So yeah, I mean, I'm solving a problem by going to the most accurate sources at every point. In this case, I mean, obviously it's a high energy type of solution. Do it continually because you don't have enough lifespan. So I have this one high focus task which will take many years of my life, but for other projects I can't do that. So I have the ability to analyze which ones get how much attention or detail.
Yeah, I don't have that ability. It's very hard for me to like prioritize one thing or another, especially without any like objective way of determining which should be prioritized. And I generally will never go for a high energy for a return. I'm all about conserving my energy and basically, being as lazy as possible about something.
Yeah, that's actually a good point that you named there. I don't have that, but I think it's a pressing factor for many types, not just INTP, and that is the ability to overcome the resistance of not doing something. I mean, for me, it's because my primary drive is to actually build something. So to achieve it, I need to build something. And as soon as you do build something, you feel so good. So it's a high that you create for yourself, and you keep on wanting more of that high. Hear me?
Yeah, sorry, there was just a connection issue for a second there. I think we're good.
Okay, right. To overcome the resistance to do anything, which I would say is the habit of laziness, you just need to start arranging your life such that you, one by one, remove all of the things that made you lazy in the first place. Get up in the morning at a certain time. Get out of bed. Start making that the habit. Stop doing the next thing that caused you to not do something. Like if you were straight away going to the computer and browsing, and that was knocking off an hour of your day, then stop doing that. Make it a 15-minute browse session. Knock off the things that you're actually browsing, which waste more time. Right, so now that you've started changing a habit there, what are the next things that you need to do? Well, okay, to get your sort of blood flowing and your adrenaline going a little bit, go for a jog, do XYZ, go for a cycle. If you need mental inspiration, make your cycle to be to the library. Go and get one book out, maybe only one. Yeah, go and get one book out. You focus on it, and your task for the end of the day is to have achieved a little bit of information on a new topic. Why do that via a book? Why not just browse it? Because by browsing, you're just promoting your laziness. So the goal is not to achieve a knowledge result. The goal is to achieve an activity level and an achievement for the day. Now, when your achievements actually align with a progression for your life, then you're sort of A for away. When it's studying, you just need to get your assignments progressed for the day. When you're working, well, you don't have much choice. You're just doing the work that you have to do. But I mean, I guess most people have got personal goals for their life.
It depends on what kind of person you are sometimes, but you've definitely done a good job at detailing your thought process. I think a big difference here is for someone like an INTP, it really just is like a knowledge-based goal, right? The goal is literally just to understand. And we get that high when we've understood something completely enough. I'm sorry, did you get any of that?
No, just say that. Hold on. Okay, yeah, go again.
Okay, we're good. So what I was saying is, I think for a type like an INTP, right, our desire, our goal is literally simply to understand things. And once the satisfaction of having understood something is there, then we don't have that drive to go any further. So
okay, if as an INTP, or for that matter any type that regards the knowledge as a goal, take 2 independent days, one where you felt extremely accomplished, you were really on a high of life because of what you achieved that day, and take a different day where you had not. You've gained knowledge, but you feel awful. What's the difference? Because or I've built something awesome. So what in the INTP's life, both ways you've gained knowledge, but one of them is not leaving you fulfilled.
Well, like I said, gaining knowledge is not really the same as gaining understanding. Gaining understanding is the goal. So we can have times where we consume a bunch of knowledge, and it obviously doesn't make us feel any better. We just want to understand things that interest us, I guess. And I think going back to what you're talking about earlier, we don't really get much satisfaction out of like continuing to practice an activity that like we feel like we already do at a level where we're like avoiding basic errors. Once we hit that point where you're getting like diminishing returns on the time you spend learning about it or how to do it, it becomes kind of a turn off. We'd rather go learn how to do something else to an acceptable level rather than continue trying to get better at that.
Yeah, I get what you mean there. Well, thank goodness I'm not an INTP.
Yeah, I know, right? I mean, believe me, I've definitely been learning how to. I mean, I'm at a point in my life now where I have a lot more responsibility, and I have to get up early in the morning to do my job, and I'm definitely in a time in my life and a mental state where I'm definitely doing a lot more. And there's definitely, the thing about being an INTP is I will feel shitty basically when I don't fulfill my obligations, right? When I don't do the things that I need to do, you know, for the people that I love or that kind of thing. Like there's a certain minimum that I expect from myself, basically, and it's kind of FE driven, I guess.
Yep. So what stops you from achieving them on a daily basis?
Nothing will stop me from achieving the things that I absolutely have to do. I guess that's basically what I'm saying. But then there's a whole host of other things that I kind of should be doing that I don't necessarily have to do, and that kind of becomes. I basically have to get myself.
Is it?
What?
Is it a laziness thing?
I don't think so. I don't think it's. I guess partially it's laziness, but I think it's also apprehension.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think it's just laziness for me. Sorry, I'm just listening.
For you?
Don't bother.
I don't know. Whatever. But I think basically. I've realized that it seems to have improved things when I've put myself into a situation where I now have to do more things. Because basically when I add to my responsibilities, then I'm inherently going to do more because I will always fulfill my responsibilities.
I think one of the things that I do when I'm in somewhat of a situation like you, like let's say I do have my projects, I do have my goals for them, but for some reason I just don't, like let's say I've got a little bit of brain fog, so I don't want to actually work on them. I'll go and do something else. So I'll still achieve something and I'll still feel that reward, like gardening, trimming the bushes, any sort of mundane task just to have achieved a result. That there's X number of things to be done in a day. So if 5 of them don't appeal to me, I'm not going to sit and do nothing. I'm going to do something to keep up that little bit of high, because that's what I suppose what it comes down to is every achievement is a high.
Right.
If you start not having any achievements in a day, that's making you feel awful and depressed.
I mean, everyone's going to feel bad if they're not achieving anything. I think that's for certain. Yeah. But I agree with you on that. I try to always make sure that I do something productive every day. Usually going to work is enough. You know, you'll have a few other errands that you have to take care of, but you know, maybe one around the house.
I've got so many things that are half done. Like I've got lights installed in the passage that need finishing off around the fittings. I've got every room in the house has got things to be done. The garden has got things to be done, but it doesn't matter because I don't need to achieve perfection today, tomorrow, or the next day. I've sort of reached a happiness level where if goals are happening in anything, then I'm achieving something. Some of them are productive for the house, some are not.
Right. Yeah, that's definitely an extroverted perception problem in general, is having many half-done things.
And I also valued interaction time with friends, so a certain amount of visiting a friend is a goal achieved. Now, I don't have that since emigrating, but that was part of it. Not too much, not too little, just the right amount to fulfill your social needs.
I agree with that. That's a goal to be achieved, is actually spending enough time with people that you care about,
yep,
who care about you. I hope you're able to make some friends in your new town, and not just on the internet.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
that's a problem for it.
It hasn't happened yet. It's extremely difficult to make friends in real life.
Well, especially if you're already a fully grown adult and stuff. I mean, most of my friends I've known for a long time, since I was a kid.
Yeah, it's the older you get, the less likely you are to make friends if you're not an extrovert.
I mean, even if you're an extrovert, I think that remains true. It's hard to find other people that you get, because when you're a kid, it's like somebody, literally, I remember my oldest friend, he literally walked up to me in first grade and was like, "Hey, want to be friends?" And I was like, "Oh, okay." When you're an adult, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah. And I think as an adult, you also actually close off a lot of things, because unless the person ticks so many boxes, what's the point of exerting more energy? So it just becomes quite unlikely to connect.
Well, it at least helps to try to be more friendly with people. I've learned to try to be more, like, just smile more and joke around with people and stuff. I don't know. Usually people like it. Just try to brighten up each other's day a little bit.
Yeah. I've sort of done a couple of bursts of energy trying to establish some friendships, but you can just see there's something not there.
I know what
I
you
don't know
mean.
exactly how to explain it, but it's not going to happen.
So, I mean, where do you want to go with this for the next? I think it's probably already been an hour. Let me see.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I reckon you know everything that you're going to know.
Oh, I wouldn't say I know everything that I'm gonna know, but you know, I know enough that the ISTP definitely seems pretty good for you, man.
ISTP?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I do. Oh, go ahead.
The weird thing was that none of the tests are giving me ISTP, and I hadn't realized that the tests were so unreliable up till very recently.
They're unreliable, and both the tests, the way they're worded, and the descriptions that you'll find of the types on the internet, like the cookie cutter descriptions, especially for certain sensor types, like if you're an SI dominant, for example, like an ISFJ or an ISTJ, you'll read one of those descriptions and it'll make you sound like, you know, like the most basic bitch, boring person who just follows the rules all the time and follows traditions all the time and doesn't do anything interesting with their life, you know, and no one's going to want to think that that's what they are. And it's not really a coherent description of what that kind of person is, really.
Yeah.
And if you look at like INTP and ISTP, for example, the descriptions you'll find of them will paint such a hugely different picture. And yet, I think that the standard descriptions you see of ISTP and INTP really should be more similar than they are. They're made to sound so very different.
Yeah.
When really they're
well,
very similar.
Maybe that can be a goal for yourself, is to put out your own set of descriptions for the 16 types.
That's what I'm kind of trying to start doing with my channel. I'm trying to focus on basically clearing up misconceptions that I've kind of, you know, put together over the years of kind of watching and listening to what's going on with the typology community. And I'm trying to say, you know, listen, this stereotype, you know, this understanding of things, it has to go away because it's not accurate and it's leading people astray and it's causing people to mistype themselves.
Yeah.
You know?
If I was you, I would put out a nice written layout, like the 16 personalities style layout, except they reword it as per your best understanding of the types. I think a lot of people will find that useful.
Yeah, I still have to... I don't think I'm actually done conceptualizing. Like, I don't really have a whole picture painted for each type. But I think at the moment I'm trying to kind of explain my understanding of each of like the functions, or really pairs of functions is I think a better way to explain things, because obviously one function like TI will imply FE on the other side of your stack and such things. So there's a certain symmetry to it that has to be outlined. But yeah, I'm just trying to clear up kind of misconceptions, and I like having conversations with people in the comments. I like having that ability to like react to questions or requests or whatever. It really helps me to be, I don't know if it's like an anything or something, but it really helps me to kind of be like prompted by something, and then I can kind of reach into what I know that's connected to what that prompt was.
Yeah. See, now that's another difference right there about maybe ISTP, INTP. I would make the framework for 16 personalities. I'd write the titles and I'd write down 5 facts or statements about each one, and I'd put it up.
Right.
It's a provisional and imperfect description, but it's up and it's done. It's a concrete result, rather than pondering it around and around for years till you feel you've got this perfect analysis. Because you've missed out on X amount of input from people responding to that first stage description.
Well, that's why it was a big step just for me to start like making videos and uploading them to my channel.
Yeah.
But you're right. it started a lot of good discussions with people in the comments and stuff because I actually put something out there.
Yeah, yeah. You should just realize you don't need to have reached an awesome level of anything to yield a first result.
No, it definitely helps me to be in more of a mindset of like, at least I'm putting ideas out there.
Yeah.
You know, maybe nobody's thought about it. I'm not trying to say that it's perfect or that I know everything, but it seems like here's a good idea, you know, and I want responses to it.
Yeah. Just get off your butt and get your channel going really well. Just put up lots of stuff, web page with descriptions and chat, and just, you know, get the flow going.
Yeah, maybe when I'm not lazy.
Yeah, you said it wasn't laziness 15 minutes ago.
I know.
Look at you now.
Well, no, it's really not. I don't know. Is exhaustion the same thing as being lazy? I don't know.
I think there's a blurry line for you in between.
Cause I'm like,
you feel exhausted 24/7.
Yeah,
but
I'm
you're
like
totally down to like bang me or like go dancing and shit. You know what I mean?
I didn't go dancing for nothing.
Okay, well we attempted to. Do you see my point?
I kind of see your point. Yeah. I don't know. It feels like it's another job. Like back when I put all those videos up, I wasn't working in construction.
Well, you already
and like getting up early and stuff.
You already said you don't have a hobby, so you gotta look at it as
well, it is my hobby.
Well, you said earlier that you didn't want it to feel like work, but if you have to do something, you're gonna consider it work in your head.
Yeah, that is the problem.
Yeah.
But no, laziness and exhaustion are two different things and can be treated differently. I mean, you can improve your diet, you can drink more water, you can do a lot of things to change exhaustion, but if you're going to allow laziness and exhaustion to exist side by side, you'll never get to anything.
That's true.
You can achieve a minor result while exhausted. You can achieve zero result while you're lazy. Just get into a mode of being more proactive and treat the exhaustion as best you can. I mean, I suffer from that as well with my job. Without it even having yield, like if I'm sitting looking at the screen all day at work, my eyes and my brain is a bit tired to then approach detailed things on my projects at home. But if I allow that to be an excuse, well, nothing's ever going to happen. So you need to make alternatives. You need to do what you need to do to progress yourself.
Damn, can you be your therapist?
I just have to want to do it. That's really all it is.
Well, don't even let that be a thing. Don't want to do it. Make it a scheduled thing. Make it a habit. You got up because you always get up. You go for a. You go for a.
You're killing me.
What?
You're killing me. Make it a schedule. Oh God. Oh, the humanity.
You're gonna hate it when we have kids. You're gonna end up making them lazy fucks too.
No.
I'm just kidding.
I don't do things on a schedule. I'm a creative individual, damn it. No, you're right though. You're right. It's just painful for me.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you want to wrap this up?
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks for the session. Good chat.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Cool. Bye-bye.
See ya.